The rain had long since become a permanent fixture of the night, tapping against the broken windows of the abandoned broadcasting station. In the dim light of their flickering lantern, the world looked carved from soot and shadow. Dust motes drifted like the ghosts of forgotten voices. Why are we even here? Emma's voice was low, almost swallowed by the oppressive silence of the place. She tightened her jacket around her, shivering not from cold, but from something deeper, an instinctual unease she couldn't name. Marcus, bent over an ancient console, didn't look up. His fingers moved with delicate reverence over the crumbling equipment, as if afraid a wrong touch might wake something better left to sleep. Because, he said, this place was the heart of every mystery story our town ever whispered about. Dead air, strange signals. We owe it to the show. Emma sighed, brushing her hand across a desk cluttered with yellowed papers and rusted coffee cans. They had come for their podcast Ghost Frequency, hoping to capture something, anything, that could salvage their dwindling audience. She hadn't expected the place to feel so wrong. In the corner of the room, half buried under fallen ceiling tiles, Marcus found it. The radio, a heavy, battered relic with a cracked dial and wires like black veins sprouting from its side. "Check this out," he said, voice low with excitement. He cleared the debris and heaved the radio onto the desk. It was dead, of course. Silent. Emma leaned in, frowning. "It's junk, Marcus." He grinned the way he always did when he was about to do something reckless. Producing a portable battery from his pack, he fiddled with the cords until a low hum vibrated in the air. The radio came alive, not with music, not with static, but with a sound like the breath of the earth itself. Deep, guttural, shifting. Emma took a step back, her stomach nodding. That isn't normal. Marcus only twisted the dial, eyes bright with the thrill of the unknown. The noise sharpened. Beneath the endless sighing, a pattern emerged, a rhythmic, almost human cadence. Then, a voice, low, whispering, fragmented by static. Asterisk, they are coming. They are coming. Asterisk. Emma clutched the strap of her bag, pulse hammering in her ears. "Marcus, turn it off." He hesitated. Then the voice shifted, became clearer, sharper, more urgent. Asterisk, two will fall before the third night. Asterisk. The lantern flickered violently, throwing monstrous shapes across the crumbling walls. "Turn it off." Emma snapped. With a curse under his breath, Marcus yanked the battery loose. Silence fell again, so sudden it felt like a physical blow. They stood there for a long moment, staring at the dead radio. Emma's mind raced, trying to rationalize, to disarm the primal fear clawing at her. "Just interference," Marcus said finally, though his voice lacked conviction. "Old signals bouncing around the atmosphere. Happens all the time." Outside, the rain had stopped. A quiet so complete settled over the station that they could hear their own breathing, the groaning of the ancient walls, the soft tick of cooling metal. Emma looked at Marcus and saw that, for all his bravado, he was rattled too. They packed up in silence, leaving the station behind like a wound half-healed. The night seemed to press against them, thick and watchful. Neither of them spoke about the voice on the walk back to town. Neither of them dared. In the distance, from the darkened hills beyond the town, something watched and waited. The streetlights buzzed overhead, halos of sickly yellow light dissolving into the mist. Emma and Marcus walked in silence, their steps echoing down empty sidewalks slick with rain. By the time they reached Marcus's cramped apartment above the hardware store, the weight of the evening hung on their shoulders like a sodden cloak. Neither had mentioned it aloud, but both had felt it. The voice had known something, something that hadn't yet happened. Inside, the apartment was warm but claustrophobic, packed with stacks of old vinyls, tangled cords, and the stale smell of dust and forgotten ambition. Marcus tossed his gear into a corner, forcing a laugh that sounded far too loud. "Probably just," he began. "Don't," Emma cut in, dropping onto the couch, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her voice trembled despite her best efforts to steady it. "Don't pretend that was nothing. You heard it too." Marcus hesitated, running a hand through his damp hair. "Yeah, I heard it." They sat in silence, the hum of the heater filling the space between them. Emma's mind kept circling back to the message. Two will fall before the third night. What did it mean? And why, deep in her bones, did she feel like it was already happening? Marcus eventually broke the stillness, setting up his recorder on the coffee table. "We'll talk about it on tomorrow's episode," he said, his voice forced into an upbeat cadence. "Maybe spin it as a prank by some old tech nut who rigged the place." Emma didn't argue. Arguing felt like admitting the truth. That night, sleep came grudgingly. Emma lay curled on Marcus's worn-out couch, the faint light of the street lamps casting restless patterns across the ceiling. Every creak of the building, every gust of wind made her heart lurch. Somewhere between waking and dreaming, she heard it, the voice, clearer now, closer. "Emma," it sighed, almost tenderly. "Watch the windows." Her eyes snapped open. The room was still, bathed in dim orange light. She turned her head slowly, muscles stiff with terror, toward the cracked window by the door. Outside, beyond the glass, something moved. A shadow, formless yet deliberate, gliding across the narrow alleyway like smoke given sentience. Emma couldn't breathe, couldn't move. She lay there, frozen, watching as the figure paused, just for a moment, then melted into the night. A long, agonizing heartbeat passed, then another. Finally, she dragged in a ragged breath and sat up, trembling so violently the couch springs whined. The alley was empty now, as if nothing had been there at all. Morning came like a mercy, though the clouds remained heavy and low, bruising the sky. Marcus found Emma already awake, pacing the living room in her socks, her skin pale and eyes ringed with sleeplessness. "You look like hell," he said, half joking. She didn't smile. Someone was outside, watching. Marcus stiffened but said nothing, instead turning to the coffee pot, like it could somehow brew away what they both knew was true. Before he could pour a cup, his phone buzzed on the counter. He picked it up absently, glanced at the screen, and went very still. Emma saw his face drain of color. "What is it?" Marcus swallowed hard, voice barely above a whisper. There's been an accident. Sarah and Nick," he broke off. Emma's heart stopped. Sarah and Nick, their two closest friends, the ones they were supposed to meet tonight, to record a new segment. Marcus's voice cracked. "Car crash. Last night, coming back from the city." The words hit Emma like a blow. Two will fall before the third night. It had already begun. The funeral was set for Friday. Closed caskets. No questions. No answers. Emma barely remembered the service. The words spoken by strangers blurred into meaningless hums, while the image of Sarah's laugh and Nick's crooked grin looped endlessly in her mind, slowly unraveling her from within. Marcus didn't speak much either. He just sat stiffly by her side, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked painful. They were both waiting, though for what, neither dared to say. That night, back at Marcus's apartment, the air felt different, heavier, as if the tragedy had soaked into the very walls. Emma hovered by the window, staring out at the slick black street, every shifting shadow sharpening her nerves to a razor's edge. "We shouldn't have touched that thing," she said finally, voice hoarse. Marcus looked up from the corner where he was fiddling once more with the radio, now set up like some grotesque shrine in the living room. "It's just coincidence," he said, but his hands trembled slightly over the dial. "Don't," Emma said sharply, stepping forward. "Just leave it dead." But it was too late. The old radio crackled, sputtered, and came alive once more with a hollow click that echoed unnaturally loud in the small room. The air grew colder, as if some unseen hand had swept the warmth away. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but low static. Then a new voice, not whispering this time, not distant. This voice was close, intimate, almost inside their skulls. "You should have left." Emma stumbled back, a gasp tearing from her throat. Marcus froze, his face blank with terror. The radio continued, the words crawling through the speakers like worms. "Before the last falls, the doors will open." Emma covered her ears instinctively, but the voice was in her blood, in her bones. Suddenly, the apartment was filled with a smell, foul metallic, like rust and something fouler still. The lights flickered violently, plunging them into darkness, then snapping back to life in stuttering bursts. Marcus lunged forward and ripped the battery from the radio, but the voice didn't stop immediately. It echoed once, twice, fading like a scream down a deep well. Silence returned, but it was no comfort. Emma sank onto the couch, head in her hands, trembling. "We have to get rid of it," she whispered. "Burn it. Smash it. I don't care." Marcus didn't move. He was staring at the dead radio, as if seeing something she couldn't. "Maybe it's not the radio," he said slowly. "Maybe it's us." Emma looked up, meeting his eyes, and saw the terrible thought blooming there. They had already opened the door. The thing on the other side had only just begun to step through. That night, sleep was impossible. Emma lay awake listening to the creaks and groans of the old building, flinching at every whisper of wind. At 3:13 a.m., a knock sounded at the door. Soft, deliberate. She sat bolt upright, blood roaring in her ears. Across the room, Marcus stirred, half asleep. The knock came again. 3 slow raps. Emma rose on unsteady legs, moving as if in a dream, drawn toward the door despite every screaming instinct. She peered through the peephole, nothing. Only the empty hallway stretching into darkness. And yet, the smell of rust was stronger now, seeping under the door like smoke. When she turned back toward Marcus, she swore, for just an instant, that the shadows behind him moved, not with the flicker of the lamp, with intent. The knock never came again, only the heavy silence, broken now and then by the distant moan of the wind twisting through the alleyways. Emma and Marcus stayed awake until dawn, backs pressed to the wall, the dead radio a silent accusation between them. As the first sickly light of morning filtered through the windows, Emma knew they couldn't stay. They had to end it, whatever it was, before it consumed them entirely. They returned to the old broadcasting station just as the town stirred to life behind them. The building stood like a corpse against the leaden sky, its gaping windows black with rot. Inside, the air was colder, heavier, as if some invisible current dragged at their limbs. Emma felt it immediately, the pressure in her chest, the whisper at the edge of hearing. Marcus carried the radio like an offering, his hands wrapped tight around it. He didn't speak. Neither did she. The studio where they had found the device seemed to wait for them. And then, as Marcus set the radio on the ruined desk, it crackled again, this time without power, without connection. "Stay," the voice breathed. "Belong." The words slithered through the room, vibrating the very walls. Emma staggered, clutching her temples. Marcus grimaced, reaching instinctively toward the radio, then stopped. "No," he said, voice shaking but firm. "You don't own us." The radio responded with a shriek of static, the sound rising and rising like the howl of some cornered beast. Emma moved first. She pulled the battery from her pack, the same one Marcus had used that first night, and pressed it against the radio again. The device flared to life, but this time, Emma didn't flinch. She gritted her teeth and turned the dial all the way to the highest frequency, past the numbers, into the blank range where no signal should exist. The voice screamed, a sound not of words, but of rage, of something ancient and furious being torn from its hold. The air itself seemed to shimmer, the dust swirling into frantic patterns. "You cannot leave," it roared. "You are part of the void." "No," Emma whispered, hand steady on the dial. "We choose not to be." With a final wrench of her wrist, the radio sparked, then burst into a crackling, blinding light. The room exploded with noise, thousands of voices crying out at once, a maelstrom of despair and rage, then silence. Real silence. Not heavy, not hungry. The weight lifted. The stench of rust faded. The air warmed. Emma blinked through the tears stinging her eyes and saw Marcus slumped against the wall, breathing hard but alive. The radio was nothing now, just twisted scrap metal, smoldering quietly on the desk. They stumbled out of the station into the cold morning. The clouds were breaking apart, sunlight piercing through in trembling shafts. For the first time in days, Emma felt the knot in her chest loosen. She looked at Marcus and, without needing to speak, saw the same thing in his face, relief. They were free. They left the station behind, letting it rot alone in the fields of rust and ash. The past could stay buried. Later, sitting on the steps outside Marcus's apartment, drinking coffee as the sun climbed higher, Emma laughed. It was a small laugh. Broken, raw, but it was real. Marcus smiled tiredly and raised his mug in salute. "To doors closed," he said, "and to never opening them again," Emma added. Somewhere far away, deep in the static of the world, a whisper might still exist. But here there was only the living, and the choice to walk forward into the light. Epilogue. Months later, the old broadcasting station was finally torn down. The town hardly noticed its absence, just another relic of a past too tired to remember. No one spoke of the strange noises that had once crept from its ruins. No one asked why the ground beneath it had blackened, as if scorched from within. Emma and Marcus moved on too. The podcast, Ghost Frequency, quietly ended. In its place came something new. A show about mysteries, yes, but ones that celebrated survival, resilience, light. They spoke often of strange things, the unexplained, the eerie. But never again did they chase the darkness for its own sake. They had looked too long into that abyss once. They knew better now. Sometimes, on cold nights when the wind rattled the windows just so, Emma would catch a flicker at the edge of her hearing. An echo, maybe, or just memory. A faint, broken whisper lost among the stars. But she would smile, shake it off, and turn back toward the living world. Some doors, once shut, stay closed, if you choose to leave them that way.